Hi, my name's Trudie, I'm a member of the IQ Bar team and I'm also one of the vloggers. This week's vlog is all about daylight saving and what it actually is. So I'll be covering about the hours of daylight, the longest and shortest days, the history of daylight saving and some positives and some negatives. For me, I sort of had an idea about what it is, but I never really knew some of the details that I learned whilst making this vlog. You'll also find another vlog about daylight savings by Kyle, which is absolutely fantastic. This is about how daylight saving time affects buddies and their teaching times, including the difference in peak hours, in contracted hours, and the time difference on the systems, which can be really difficult to get your head around, well, speaking from my own personal experience. So what is daylight saving time? This is often abbreviated to DST and can also be known as daylight savings time or daylight time, which they often use in America, but we also use in the UK as well as other places. Generally, you don't see this used in places near the equator, where the sunrise times do not vary enough to justify the use of it. In some countries, it's observed only in some regions. For instance, in southern Brazil it's observed, whilst in equatorial Brazil, it's not. With less than 40% of the countries in the world using DST, only a minority of the world's population used it, because Asia and Africa generally don't. The difference in light is most noticeable in the areas at a certain distance from the Earth's equator. So DST is the practice of advancing clocks during the summer months so the evening daylight lasts longer, while sacrificing the normal sunrise times. Typically, regions that use daylight saving time adjust the clocks forward 1 hour close to the start of spring, and then adjust them backwards in the autumn to standard time. So in effect, DST causes a lost hour of sleep in the spring and an extra hour of sleep in the fall. Most clocks are set back 1 hour or ahead. However, in some places, like in Lord Howe Island in Australia, the clocks are only set 30 minutes forward, so they have a different abbreviation which is often written as LHST or LHDT. In the UK summer, there are more hours of daylight and the days are lighter for longer. In the winter, there are less hours of daylight. The days become darker earlier in the evening. In the UK, the day with the most hours of daylight in the year is 21st of June, and this is called the summer solstice. The day which has the fewest hours of daylight in the year is the 21st of December, and this is called the winter solstice. When the British summertime begins, everyone moves the time on their clocks forward 1 hour. This is where the saying, "put your clocks forward," comes from. We have that saying to help us remember which ways to put the clocks. So we say spring forward as the clocks go forward and fall back as the clocks go back 1 hour. Here's a little fun fact for you. In the royal households across the UK, the staff working for the Queen spend approximately 5 hours changing the time on around 1,000 clocks. So I thought it'd be really interesting if we looked at a little bit of history to do with daylight saving time. In 1895, George Hudson proposed the idea of daylight savings, but this wasn't implemented until later. In April 1916, Germany became the first country to switch to daylight saving time, which you often see written, as I've mentioned, as DST, and this saved lots of fuel during the war. In 1914, William Willett decided that people should make the most of the longer hours of daylight in the summer. He pointed out that less coal and candles would be used, and people would have lighter evenings. In May 1916, Britain also switched to daylight saving times. Many countries have used it at various times since then, particularly since the energy crisis of the 1970s. So here are some positives about why we use DST. It makes a better use of the natural daylight. There are less traffic accidents as people can see more clearly in the daylight. We save energy, which is really important as not as many lights are on, so less electricity is being used. More people are able to exercise outdoors. And most computers, which is a real plus, adjust the time automatically, which is really helpful. Here are some cons, some negatives about DST. It often means that darker mornings can mean it's less safe for children to walk to school. And farmers get up early, so for them, they're working in the dark for longer. As always, I really hope this has helped, and you can check out Carl's vlog on the effect that DST will have on your teaching, depending where you are. So, happy teaching, guys, and contact a member of the team if you want any more information.